Welcome to the Jack Attack. I am your host, Jack Everett, and today I wanted to talk about the new series on Netflix called iLand or The iLand. That's I-Land. Kind of like iPhone, except there's a hyphen between land and I. But anyway, I want to talk about this show. This is just an early thoughts video. I've only seen one episode so far, and I want to give my thoughts on it. Because this show is certainly, it has an interesting premise. Now, keep in mind, I haven't even really seen the trailer for it. I think I saw 5 seconds of trailer, but just the description alone was enough to get me interested in watching it. And so I watched it, this first episode, and there's already a disconnect. I would say there's going to be a huge disconnect between what's going on in the show and the audience. And let me explain why by giving a few examples. So the very first thing that we see, two women wake up on an island and they approach each other and they're immediately hostile towards each other. They immediately don't trust each other with no real reason. I mean, I shouldn't say no real reason. I suppose the reason they don't trust each other is because they both have amnesia and they don't recognize each other. But their reaction is to be hostile towards each other, which is strange because I think about this situation. If I woke up and I was on an island and I had no memory of anything, but apparently I could still reason through things the way I can now, I don't think my immediate reaction would be to be hostile towards other people. You know, I mean, maybe there'd be a little bit of defensive-ness going on, but I wouldn't immediately hate somebody, I guess is the way to put it. So anyway, we quickly find out that there's, I think, like 7 or 8 people actually on the island. And from there on out, there's just even more of a disconnect. Now, I think if you found a group of 8 people and all of them had no idea what they were doing there or how they got there, the reaction that I think any normal human being would have was, well, let's work together to figure this out. That's what I think the reaction would be. But the reaction of the characters in this show is, let's just all not trust each other and let's all just not even think about the situation that we're in at all. I went through Boy Scouts and I got a little bit of survival training from Boy Scouts. You know, probably not enough to keep me alive, but I've been told a few things about what you need to do to stay alive if you find yourself stranded. And the first thing is you need to locate a water source. The characters didn't do that. The second thing is you need to get yourself fire. Okay, the characters did do that. They ended up building like a dinky fire on the beach. I mean, it wasn't a particularly good fire, but at least they had that there. The second thing is shelter. And other than mentioning shelter, no one was actively thinking to themselves, we need to build a shelter. And then lastly, you need to find a food source. Now, they did kind of find a food source with coconut. The main thing is, like, they weren't too concerned with shelter. And so it's like, it's a sunny day on the beach while they're there, but realistically speaking, it's like they don't know how cold it's going to get at night. You know, they don't know where they are, so it could just get cold at night and they could freeze to death like on the first night. There just isn't that many hours in a day to do everything that these characters decided to do. The worst decision that the characters made in this episode was they decided to go swimming. Like, if I found myself stranded on an island, leisure time would be the least of my concerns. You know, it just wouldn't be a concern at all. And I think it's implied that they basically spent half an hour to an hour just swimming around. And it's like, you know, daylight's going to run out. Like, you need to be prepared for nightfall. So this is what I'm talking about when I say there's going to be a disconnect between the characters and the audience. I think that there's a pretty good indication from the very start, just based on this first episode, that no one watching the show is ever going to relate to the characters. No one's ever going to care about any of the characters. In fact, I'm imagining, here's what I anticipate in watching the show, because I will watch the rest of the series, but what I anticipate is that I'll dislike every single character more and more every episode, and then if any of them get killed or die off or all die off, that will be the joy of the show, is seeing characters get killed off, etc. I mean, I don't know if that's what's going on in the show, but these characters are just unbelievable. So 2 characters decide to go off and explore the island. And then they find a waterfall. And for some reason, one of the characters thinks, oh, this waterfall will be a good source of drinking water. And then he just says to the other character, you know, we could keep this place a secret from everybody else. Like, why would that be anyone's reaction in a survival situation to just tell one of the other people, oh, the best place on the island we found so far, we should keep a secret. It makes no sense. The motivations of the characters makes no sense. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. First off, it could just be bad writing. This is one suspicion I have, is it's just really bad writing, and whoever wrote it just doesn't relate to actual human beings at all. One of the characters basically assaults a woman, and it's pretty offensive in terms of content. But you look at the situation and you're like, no one would behave like this unless they had an incredibly low IQ. But none of the characters strike me as having particularly low IQs. They seem like fairly reasonable, average to above average people. And the way the characters behave is just dumb. Like, that's just how they behave. They behave very, very dumbly. And so one suspicion I have, and it'll be interesting to see if this is actually the case, is that the characters are actually some kind of android. They're all androids or robots of some sort. And the whole island thing is an experiment to see how the androids would react, because they don't behave like human beings. Like that, like they just don't behave like human beings. That's why this is a possible explanation. So anyway, I'm going to keep watching the show. I'm going to see how it goes. I'm interested to see how it goes. I mean, as annoying as the characters are, the whole premise of the show is still very compelling. And so I'm interested to see where it goes from here. So this has been my thoughts on The I-Land, available on Netflix now. So feel free to check it out. And if I think highly of it, I might report back later on what I thought of it. This has been Jack Everett. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk at you later.